Hi everyone, Florence Theriault here again to talk to you. 2025, how did this happen? We were just going along doing things and then all of a sudden it's 2025. I saw the opening Christmas special of Midwives last night, and they were moving into 1970, and I said, oh my gosh, that is more than 50 years ago now. It's more than half a century. So then we come back and I look at these wonderful dolls that I have been working with, and I think it's fun. Time is funny, but some things change constantly and some things never change. And our dolls, when we study their history of them, well, it's true that some things never change. We have, as one of our great teachers that really brought this lesson forcefully to us, was Rosalie Weil, in her wonderful museum in Bellevue, Washington, where she presented the dolls as art, and also, as I want to really emphasize to you, the doll as history. And that's what her dolls have always been about. She sought out not only dolls that had tremendous amount of years in antiquity to them, but dolls that had a story or that didn't have a story, and maybe you could track it down and you can find out some more things about it. And I have like an hour here today to show you what some of these wonderful dolls are that are from her upcoming part 2 of the auction of the Rosalie Weil Museum of Doll Art. Wonderful examples here, great stories, and lots of good fun, lots of great dolls. One of her special loves, she started, her daughter Shelley Helzer has said, she started with German characters, but after a while, because they were kind of from her, something that she could relate to, that she understood. But as time went on, she became more and more fascinated with earlier dolls, and particularly with the early wooden dolls. And that's why she really was such a powerhouse in collecting this wonderful sample of early dolls. And I have some to show you here on this shelf. If you're able to go online and look at our issue catalog that's online, or look at our actual catalog that's posted doll by doll, you'll find wonderful histories of each of these dolls. And I'm here just to kind of give you an overview and show you what some of them might be. One of the things that's fascinated me is that the research on these early English, particularly English wooden dolls, is so difficult to do because we really don't have the names of many of the makers. And we're not able to really, I look at the faces and say, okay, this is the kind of face that this person always made, and this is the kind that this one always made. But there's more and more research going into that, and you all need to get involved in it and try to find where trends might be developing. For example, there are actually four dolls here, and they're all different. They all have completely different faces. One of the things that I have been quite fascinated recently was we mostly have a notion that, tell the truth, when you look at an early English wooden doll, what do you think, child or woman? You tend to think a woman, a grown woman. But many of these dolls were actually designed when they were first made. They represented a child. I think a lot of our mistaken identity on this part is because of our changing concepts of what a child represents and how they would dress. But in these cases, particularly in many of the wealthy families, the children really were miniature models of the grown women in the family. And that may be why some of it is the case. When we're lucky enough to find them in their original costumes, that is just such a wealth of wonderful information too. And we have here, for example, examples of the bone corsets. We have the wonderful woman with her heavily panniered gown. Now, can you imagine trying to sit down in that? Now, let's be real. But this is how people lived. They represented themselves. They were representing the family, and they would dress accordingly for what was right. We are also seeing in these many, many different examples of the exquisite fabrics that were being made at the time. Some of them with very, very fine embroidery, and some of them with beautiful silk. And this particular one in the front, I want to call to your attention because her wonderful day dress, her day gown, is embroidered in what we call in English fly fringe, because it looks like a fringe on the little eyelids of a fly. That's how delicate it is. In French, it has the name Sourcil d'Anatone, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but basically it's the eyelashes of the maybug or the beetle. And it's a very, very specific embroidery. Only the most skilled people could perform that, and to be able to find it intact on this gown is absolutely extraordinary. In addition, she has, and I'm going to turn her around, this wonderful, wonderful woven hat. You can see the little delicate wire frames around the outside, and then like the petal weaving of the straw to form the hat. Very, very fine. One of the ways that we can prove that people thought of dolls differently, they thought of them as history and as art. Stand up here now, dear. There we go. I wanted to show you this wonderful little pair, and let me get this tray so I can lay them on it and you can see them a little more carefully. The secret of these dolls is that they are what is known as bristle dolls. And protruding from the bottom of their costume are the tiniest, most delicate wires. And it was designed that they could be placed on a table, and then if you tap the table very lightly, the dolls would dance about. In my experience, and I've seen bristle dolls, it doesn't usually happen. They usually fall over, but it was a nice phenomenon. Let me turn them to their backside so you can see that as well. And then as the final proof that they were thought of, not as playthings, but as art, they were sold at R. Ackerman's Repository of Arts in London. And the Rosalie Museum collection is full of these fascinating, fascinating little treasures that you have to look at. We find this doll is absolutely wonderful because she has an early album that goes with her. These are all from the 1700s. And she even has shoes and stockings. She has a wonderful gown with this fabulous other needlework at the time that's known as the pin work. And the designs are actually created with very delicate pinholes into the fabric, into that wonderful jacket. It's very, very great. Interesting about whether the concept of whether these pieces are women or children. I mean, she clearly, to me, represents a woman, but then you look at her gown, and what does she have at the back of the gown? What are called leading strings. Long pieces of fabric, same as the fabric as the gown, reaching out of the back of the gown. Let me just show you. And this was very typical with the child's costume of the period, designed to, like a little leash in a way, to keep the child from running away. That you put this lovely gown on it and on the child, and then you would control their activity with what were called leading strings. One of my favorite things in the whole collection, and I think if we go through here today, I'm going to tell you, okay, well, Theriault people, we have a company philosophy that we're not allowed to bid at anything we sell because we think that's a conflict of interest. We're here to represent the collector, and we're here to find you as the buyers to let you have all the opportunity for your best thing. So we never, that's a company policy. However, I like to play the game. If I was allowed to bid at my auction, what would I buy? And I would tell you that the cheating card players would not lead my hands. That is a wonderful piece. And what's really great is you have to look at it very, very carefully, and you will see that they're all holding little playing cards in their hand. They're having a wonderful game of cards. This is from the 1700s, and there's even a couple that are tucked down in such a way that you know that they're cheating. They're fooling around there and having a wonderful time. So it's been known as the cheating card players. This was originally in the collection of, I'm going to interrupt here again, walk across it, from the collection of Henri Dallemand, who was one of the first French collectors of antique dolls and toys, late 1800s, early 1900s, and he amassed wonderful early pieces that might never have seen the light of day if it had not been for him. He wrote a book about dolls, and he was very instrumental in working and having exhibitions of the dolls so people would appreciate them. And this piece actually has a little paper inside telling at an exhibition from the collection of Henri Dallemand and where they were exhibited as late as 1923. And after that, we don't know who owned them until they showed up in Rosalie's museum. These wonderful stories these dolls have. We wish we could track every bit of the way, but what a thrill to be able to think we can go on and keep searching for their stories. Let's move on and look at some more over here. Now you can tell that I've gotten very enthused about fabrics and embroidery and design of costumes in working on this collection. And one of the items to be featured in the auction is this gown all by itself. It's absolutely extraordinary with the wide pannier sides, beautifully lined throughout, all wonderful work. And I wanted to show you the wonderful embroidery that we have taken of the work on the back, because when you look at this, you think that this is all embroidered, but it is actually woven into the fabric, and you can see that. And then you have these wonderful designs on the outside. And let me just turn the gown around for you, because I want to show you how extraordinarily this is made. It almost looks, it fits so beautifully, like there's a zipper up the back, but oh no, there's no zipper. If you pull this apart, you can see it is laced in the back. It's a bone corset. The dress has a fitted bone corset, and it's laced up at the back, and then this beautifully fitted back to bring it down smoothly over the sides. Beautiful pleating of the sleeves, and coming around the front, you can see how the sleeves fan out, and it's just an absolutely precious, precious gown. It's so wonderful. There's been a book written about pockets. That's such a great subject that just the very topic of pockets, I know some people collect them. Now, pockets were worn by women, and they were kind of hidden under their costume a little bit, but it's where they kept, I don't know, coins, secrets, love letters, whatever they wanted to keep. This one does have some little handkerchiefs inside, and there are actually some, it looks like little letters in here. Oh, I remember it, little papers with days of the week on them, probably assignments. And then this one has a very unusual attached extra little pouch, which has inside a fan. It's a wonderful, wonderful example of a pocket. On the wonderful early doll, this is from the 1600s, on the early wooden doll up on top, we actually left her pocket on the outside of her costume so you could see, because it's done in linen and with crewel embroidery on it. It's an absolutely stunning one. Very, very rare, glass-eyed 1600 period doll. We have another wonderful wooden doll here with, again, in beautiful original fabric, a wonderful bonnet on her. Moving along to this one, and you'll see the photograph, because she looks like, first of all, rare because of her complexion, which is all original, her brown complexion, delicate blushing on the cheeks, and look at this. When you lift her skirt, there is a complete mechanism underneath, a cast iron clockwork mechanism for her to be walking, and walk she does. She walks very, very well. She moves her arms up and down. Her hands are carved out of bone, which is quite rare, and her head turns from side to side. She's a busy woman. One of the really beginning of the automatons for private people to buy. Very, very difficult, very complicated. The piece is heavy. It's really interesting. Unlike the automatons made in the late 1800s, these were very, very heavy and very complicated. But for her still to be working and to have this wonderful original costume is quite rare. In the back, okay, if I were a collector, would not leave my hands. This arrangement this is actually two different lots, but they are both wax dolls from about the same time period. We have this wonderful woman who's posed in a seating position and holding her little wax baby on her lap. Definitely a gown from the 1700s, and you can see it's modeled with very, very low bosom on her, and she's just an absolutely beautiful face. The one on the bed is quite intriguing. Narrow, high poster bed. The person lying in it is obviously, it's modeled from the waist up only. The lower part of the body is your imagination, let's say. It's under the covers. And on the edge of the bed is a sign, La patience dans la maladie. Patience while you are sick. You must have patience. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece. I just really love that. Moving along, we have more of the English wooden, and this one is an example of, if you wonder if they were children or ladies, this is definitely a child. This one is definitely designed to represent a child. Very, very wonderful. In the back, there's about 4 examples of these in the Rosalie Wilde collection, and I find them absolutely intriguing. They're early paper dolls, but they're costumed paper dolls. Costumed in actual fabrics, very, very authentically done, and arranged in a shadow box with props like the clock hanging on the wall, and she holding the mandolin, a very wonderful early decorative piece. Another one of my pieces, this would never leave my hands if I were a collector. I love this doll. It's a German doll. It's a German paper mache doll, early 1800s, by Frederick Muller, attributed to Frederick Muller. And I'm going to show you, because I want you to pay attention closely to this. You think the doll is wearing jewelry, but the doll has jewelry modeled on her. On the forehead, that is sculpted and painted, earrings sculpted and painted, necklace sculpted and painted, including the medallion hanging down. And then when I turn her to the side, look at that incredible profile. Absolutely wonderful. I'll turn her to the back and so you can see the extraordinary coiffure in the back, including the comb at the top of the head, which even has, you can even see the little teeth coming out of the comb. That's how beautifully detailed it is. And then I'll show you on this side. Very, very wonderful, extremely rare doll, and very elegant and really quite regal. We have here a wonderful, early, large wooden doll, and notable with, may I just step in here and turn her slightly to the side. I want you to notice her elegant, it's very Roman or Grecian looking with that long forehead and nose coming together, just very, very refined and wonderful. This is a German doll now. And when I turn it back, I do want you to notice what else she has, which is she has a modeled bosom and she has painted and sculpted details of her chemise top. And then this is actually a carved top of where her gown would go down below the wooden body. And you see a photograph of what her body looks like when she doesn't have this simple gown on. Even the sculpting even extends to the hands, which have absolutely wonderfully great detail of hands, very expressive, as though she's about to make a point or show you something. Very, very fascinating. They hung in churches, they were used in parades, it's a poupard, it's all one carved piece of wood. And again, let me turn it so you can see detail of the carving all the way around. Absolutely wonderful pieces. They have inset enamel eyes, and the face on this little fellow is it is just absolutely cherubic, charming. How could you not want to have him around your house? He's just wonderful. He is sharing the box that actually belongs to the woman in the back, who has very, very, again, she has the carved detail of the bosom around her, as you can see, and she has all articulated arms and legs. She has painted yellow shoes, and she has lived in this box for the past, I can't do the math, she's lived in this box since about 1810. Very, very rare to find them totally original like that. A wonderful face on her. Now in the back, there are two other little peg wooden dolls, but another one that's in the box from the Rosalie Museum, and these were featured, and I'm going to show you the titles, some of her book titles that she did. Many of these dolls were featured in those books, including this doll, and the one in the back in the box. And she loved this because she wondered who put this in this box years ago, and how has it been so perfectly preserved there all these years, entirely original costume. And the more you look at it, and cherish it and realize how everything from the bonnet to the ribbons, everything is right, including she's holding a little Bristol glass smelling salts bottle in her hand. What is the story behind this doll? Don't we wish we knew? It's absolutely wonderful. Behind her is a wonderful early paper mache doll, moving from the wood into the paper mache. The Germans kept many of the same facial features, the very refined, almost proud look to the doll. Very calmly combed hair that's very beautifully, the way it's waved around her face, combed into the little ranged curls at the back of the head. Very fine. And again, this doll having what became the classic of the dolls and what used to be known as milliner's models, for some reason, I don't know, but they usually identified the fact that the doll has a slender kid body with wooden lower arms and legs, and that's a very, very lovely example of one.